Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Healed and Chilled. And today we have yet another wonderful, amazing, and special guest. And you guys already know how I like to do it. I like for the guest to have control of the narrative. So, if you would, from your own words, in your own point of view, can you introduce yourself and we'll dive right into the interview?
Okay, my name is John A. as in Adam R. Arendt, Brink, B-R-I-N-K. Uh, I'm 85 years young, and
Oh,
I live in British Columbia, Canada, and
wow.
that's on the West Coast, and about 500 miles north of Vancouver, which is in a city called Prince George. So I'm a businessman. I've 10 different businesses. I still work. I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed. I always think I'm late. And I'm an author. I'm working on my sixth book. I'm a
Wow.
presenter and a speaker. I'm a podcaster. I'm working on my 450th podcast where I'm the host, and other 200 where I've been a guest. And then I've done close to very active on YouTube. We're approaching 1 million subscribers.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. First of all, I would have never guessed you were 85. So that I
Well,
was
thank
like,
you.
wait a minute, what? Are you sure about that?
85 years young.
Wow, I know that's right. So do you think, oh, wow.
There's a picture of me. I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America.
I can, well, you're a bodybuilder too?
Yes.
Wow. How do you do all of those things? Like, how do you said you have 10 different businesses, you work up at five, like you clearly in shape, like you have a podcast. How do you do it all?
I'm also ADHD. It's a
Oh,
superpower. That's how I do it.
yes. Please expand. Please expand.
I wrote a book on ADHD as well. So it's a superpower in my mind. And a lot of people say that, but you say, how do you do all this stuff? I say, I'm ADHD. That's how I do it.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. And a lot of people will say, even like for myself, because I do have my hands on a lot of different pockets as well, and they'll say, like, well, you're supposed to just do one thing, just do the one thing. But you clearly are not doing the one thing. So
No.
have you ever just done one, or have you always been like, you know what, I'm good at this, I want to do that, and just trying a whole bunch of different things at once?
Yeah, the interesting question, Yana, because it took me till I was 62 until I was diagnosed. I
Oh, okay.
always have been ADHD. I'm one of the believers I was born ADHD. And
Mm.
so, uh, and there were already signals early in my life. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. And then they said to
Oh,
my parents,
wow.
"What you going to do with this guy?" And they said, "Send him to the mentally challenged school." My parents said, "No, we're not going to
Mm.
do that." So I got a job. They said, "Well, he's not bright enough to but amount to anything." Not my parents, but others say that, including teachers.
What?
And so, yeah, in those days, these John again is it's not going to amount to too much. And so, and I was going to prove to myself that I could just as well as others. And,
Mm.
and then, so at 12 and a half years old, I started working as in a furniture factory. And but it took me by coincidence that I learned about ADHD. I saw a book and I read the book and I said, oh my God, that's me. And
Oh,
so
wow.
5 years after I checked out what is it, never heard of it. I went to my doctor that delivered our two daughters and was a personal friend. And he
Mhm.
said to me, hey, John, why are you here? I said, I think I'm ADHD. And we checked it out, and I am. So it took 50 years for me to find out who I was. And
Wow.
so I feel very strongly about neurodeficiency issues, obviously, and all those things. I speak about it. I podcast about not only about that, but about a lot of other stuff as well. And saying that it's not a liability.
Mm.
It can be a superpower.
Absolutely. And I also am like dyslexic and ADHD as well. Like always just ripping and running and always got to be doing something. But I agree. I think it definitely is a superpower because I think I wouldn't have been able to do as much in a short amount of time because you always have to be busy. So I'm curious. You mentioned that there were teachers, and that's just diabolical that your teacher would say something like you can't announce anything. That's just crazy. But I heard you say that your parents were like, no, we're gonna. So how much of an impact did they have in you continuing to believe in yourself and push the envelope even when like teachers and people were telling you that you couldn't do it?
My parents were always supportive. In fact, I still remember I had a sister. She passed away, unfortunately, a
Oh,
number of years ago
sorry.
when she was young. But around the dinner table and John struggling in school, she said, the only millionaire in our family will be John.
Mm,
And so it was kind of comical at the time, but still, it always kind of stayed with me, and but
mm,
stayed with me more than anything that my parents believed in me, my sister, my
mm,
brother, and my family did. It was just in school a lot of times because I was classic in terms of if he had tests, then they would in Holland it was this way, and the lowest was a 1 and the highest was 10. And so they would always read it off, and Susan has a 9, and then Peter got a 7, and then Coach got an 8, and John Brink got a 0. And say, as usual. And it was a
oh,
chocolate number.
wow.
And so people then didn't understand the issues sort of relating to ADHD and dyslexia. So, but I always knew there was something that made me different, but I
Mm,
didn't understand why until I already was in Canada for 32 years. In 1997, I usually, and if I'm in my studio where I do my podcasting, I have the actual book that I picked up here in the store, and
mm,
the title of the book was Driven to Distraction, written by Dr. Hollywell. And Dr.
mm,
Hollywell is ADHD and has dyslexia, wrote 18 books, is known globally
mm.
for his presentations on ADHD and dyslexia issues and other neurodiversity issues. And so I read the book and then I wrote in the book in Dutch because there was an inference that it was a limitation, a mental uh, dysfunction.
Deficiency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I wrote in the book. Now I finally know who I am,
Mm.
and and so the date on the book was January 1997. Dr.
Wow.
Halliwell wrote that book in 1993. I bought it in 1997. It's still available, actually, for a lot of people. I refer to it a lot. And for those people that are interested in, if they watch my podcast number 203, On the
Mm.
Brink with John A. Brink, then that's an interview with Dr. Halliwell.
Oh,
And
wow. Love
yeah,
that.
so very, very popular. On the Brink 203. And so as we were talking about it, I suggested, and he's the expert, but I believe that in all the time that I had kind of been checking, reading about it, Googling about it, it has a superpower, has the potential to be that, and
Mm.
that I believed that the frequency of occurrence was much higher than initially stated, maybe 6 or 8%. I believe that it was as much as 20%. I suggested
Mm.
that to Dr. Hollywell. He said, no, John, it's probably more like 25%. And I agree with them. And then I've been involved in many, many businesses. Where I've been on the board of directors, and I got to know a lot of people that are very, very successful. And I believed, and I suggested that to Dr. Halliwell, of the successful and the operative is successful business
Mm.
people or other people that are very good in a number of things. It's probably as high as 50%. He said, no, John, as high as 75%. And
Oh,
I
wow.
and I believe that. So the frequency of occurrence on a global basis, ADHD and dyslexia, either individually or both, I'm both. The
Mhm.
could well be presents itself different between males and females. Obviously, I'm not a dog. Just indicate that from experience. Could be well as high as 30%. And I believe
Wow.
that as well.
Yeah, I've never heard it put that way, honestly. And I can definitely appreciate it because even like someone as myself, sometimes and like just listening to different books and things, like sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe I'm doing too many things and maybe I should try to do one, but my mind doesn't work that way. Like I have to try different things, but I've always felt kind of like bad about it until this conversation. So,
And I do too, Yana. I always have been that way, right from the time I was a kid. And
mm,
so, and then when I came here, hence, my dream was I wanted to kind of prove to myself that I was just as good as any of the others, not better than, but just as good. So I wanted to start with nothing. So I couldn't
mm,
speak the language, didn't know soul, didn't have a job. Why did I go to Canada? Is because on April of 1945, we were liberated by the Canadian Army from the German forces at that point.
mm.
And I was just a little 5-year-old, and things had been very, very difficult, very tough. Some
Wow.
fortunates that we should not have seen. I still have PTSD because of
Mm.
it. I got counseling for and a child actually in my 50s. And so
Wow.
I wanted to prove to me that I could do it. Start with nothing.
Mm.
So I took a suitcase when I was 24 years old. Took a suitcase, three books, sorry, and then two sets of clothes and very little money. And landed in Montreal, and on the plane, and then, took the train across Canada. 4 days, 5 nights. My God, that is a long way. So
Yeah.
I arrived in Vancouver, went to the immigration department, couldn't speak English. Fortunately, there was a German fellow there. I could speak a little bit of German. I told him I wanted to build a lumber mill. He said, go to Prince George, 500 miles, 800 kilometers for European France, north of Vancouver. And that's where I've been now for 60 years. I'm speaking for you from
Wow.
there. So when I came off the bus here, and here's my suitcase, three books, two sets of clothes, I counted my money at least three times. I had exactly $25.47.
What?
But I had attitude. I've
Mm.
always been positive. No matter what, I avoid, don't even come close to me. I'm positive. Every day is a good day for me.
Mm. Yes.
Passion, whatever I do, I give it 125%. Work ethic, even at 85, I work
Mm.
harder than anybody. I get up at 5:30 in the morning, always make my bed, and always think I'm late.
Mm.
And I enjoy every day in
Mm.
Canada, and particularly in British Columbia and in North America. I fly around a lot because I do a lot of business in the United States as well as in Canada. I always sit by the window and I look outside, no matter where I am in North America and the United States or Canada, I look out the window and say, it's paradise.
Mm.
The luckiest people in the world. And obviously, I've been in war years, so I can relate to it. I've seen too much. I've seen
Mm.
some people, all respectfully, they think once the war is over, everything goes back to normal. No, it doesn't. It can take generations before it gets back to normal.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that's what happened to our family. That my dad, the la- you know, my mom and dad were married in 1938. They were in love. My dad had a job in a lumber mill, and then, fairly quick, they had a beautiful house that they rented. Very quickly, they had a boy and a girl, and so then he was drafted into the Dutch army because of the Germans
Hmm.
invading potentially Western Europe. And so the last time that they saw him was just before Hitler bombed Rotterdam. They saw him in Rotterdam. For 5 years. They wouldn't know if he was dead or alive. And so my mom had the two little kids and then was
Yeah.
pregnant with me. And so things got pretty tough for her and for us. And
Yeah.
so I remember the hunger summer and fall, and particularly in 1944, was nothing to eat. A lot of kids died. A lot of older people that were delicate passed away because of hunger and lack of food. And so we as kids, my brother, my sister, myself, every morning we would go into the railroad yard and pick up anything edible and burnable. And the reason we did as kids, they wouldn't shoot us, but they boot us one, and the following morning we'd be back. So,
Wow.
so that's it. We saw far too much that we should not have seen. And subsequently, still PTSD is very much part of me. And as I said earlier, the NHL as well. So I
Mm,
appreciate peace and
Mm,
democratic rule because I've been there in war years. And if I look around the world now, look at Russia and the Ukraine and then the Middle East and look countries like dictatorships like Russia, China, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, and I can go on and on and on.
mhm.
Iran comes to mind, of dictatorships that are brutal to their population and others.
Wow.
well, and for first off, I appreciate your vulnerability and your openness because it definitely brings a whole new perspective into who you are and how you became. So, how were you able to go from what you experienced and have a positive outlook? Because a lot of times, what can happen is when people experience really traumatic things, it can have a negative outlook on everything, but it seems like you've chosen to have a positive view. And so you could say it's because of where you are, but it sounds like it's something that you started out with, like purposely trying to remain positive in various situations. So, what made you do that? Was it your influence? Was it your family? Or was it something inside of you, or just like a mix?
Yeah, it's a good question, Yana. The I did that already from the time I was a little kid. Not from
Mm.
external, because obviously it was looked at as kids can be hard on each other. So the
Yeah.
kids I went to school with in grade seven and failed grade seven three times, they went to college and then universities, and I became a laborer. I'm proud of that today. But
Mm.
so all of a sudden, socializing with them was out of the picture too, because I was a laborer. But
Mm.
I lived in my own world and I dreamed in my own world. And
Mm.
I knew, although I was different, that I could go there. So that's why
Mm,
I made it hard on myself. I wanted to start with nothing when I came to Canada. I couldn't speak the language, didn't know soul, didn't have a job. But there was no question in my mind that I would be successful.
mm,
And and that has always stayed with me even today. When things are challenging, I still work very hard. My companies are still growing. It's not about money for me.
mm,
And then the other part is I'm an author. I'm working on my sixth book, and so it's the thing that is important to me today more so than ever before is to share with others that everything is possible.
mm,
And I do a lot of presenting to young people, high schools, colleges, universities. And I say to them that, and I heard this on a US television station, I guess the Canada and the US are very close, so we watch each other's television, is that I heard that the United States, 75% of the people that work, and I'm sure Canada is the same, do not like their jobs. And of the 75%, 70% of them are looking for another job.
Mm.
And so what I'm saying is that uh, you know, in early in life, and when I do presentation on schools or universities or colleges, I always ask the question to some of the people, so what are you going to do when you finish? And most of them,
mm,
I don't know. Well, respectfully, I would suggest you start looking around and saying, what would I like? And what direction should I go? Examples.
Mhm.
If I want to be a truck driver, hypothetically speaking, talk to truck drivers. They love to talk to you, saying, should I own the truck? Should it be a long haul? Short
mhm,
haul? Blah, 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 whatever. and to get to understand it. Or you want to be a contractor of some sort, say a plumber, talk to plumbers. Or you want to own a company like that, talk to their owners. They love to talk to you. Or you want to be a doc, or you want to be a lawyer, or you want to be an engineer, or for that matter, you want to be an entrepreneur. I get people, young people in particular, asking me, can I have a coffee with you at some point? And if the time permits, and I go out of my way to say, sure, we'll go for the coffee, and then ask me questions about what I do, how I do it, why did I do it, and all those other kind of things.
Mhm.
And the first thing that I usually say is entrepreneurship is overrated in a lot of ways. That a lot of people
Mm.
think that what you do mainly is planning holidays and bringing money to the bank. It isn't. It's a challenge. And
Yes.
that it can be very rewarding, but it can be also very demanding. And
Yeah.
so so having interaction with people that have been successful is very important. For me, even when I was young and
Mhm.
not doing well in the traditional learning cycle, is I spend a lot of time listening to successful people or reading about them as to
Yeah.
what made them successful and why. And I kept doing that from the time that I was young. And then a fair question would be if you ask me, what kind of books did you take with you to Canada when you had only three? If you ask
Mhm.
me that question, then I would say the one book that I took, and then you can get it in your mind that I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. So what interest would I have in what kind of reading? The first one I took was Management by Drucker in Dutch. Drucker is one of the, and you know about Drucker. For those people that don't know, maybe know that he's probably respected from a management style perspective as one of the best known ones around the globe. The other
Mm.
one was important for me is logical thinking because I always believe that is critical. And then the other one was about Canada. So that part of who are they? What do they think? What made them successful? Always was important. But
Mhm.
I've struggled with who am I for a long time. So and it was not until I was already in about 1990, I was already in my 50s, early 50, just turned 50 actually. And a friend suggested I had difficulty communicating. Part of it maybe was language, part of it was that who am I thing, but I was successful in business already. And
Mhm.
so I could communicate with 3 or 4 people in my company, but outside of that was difficult. So somebody said to me, why don't you go with me to an organization called Toastmasters? I said,
Okay.
Toastmasters? What do they do? It's about communication skills. I
Mhm.
said, are they going to ask me questions? No, you just sit there and watch it. And if you like it, go again. And if not, So I did that. And halfway through the meeting, somebody said, hey, John, tell us all about you. I said, oh my God, I'll never go back again. But I did. I stayed there for 10 years. It
Mm.
changed my life. I became a distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest level. Some people go just for the time to help them, but I was a basket case. So I needed, in my mind, I spent 10 years and came to the highest level, and it changed my life.
Mm. So, a common theme that I'm hearing from you as well is like purposely putting yourself in situations that might be uncomfortable. And that's something that I deeply respect because in order to grow, you have to try new things. And so there are a lot of times where I'm like, I'm a little bit nervous about this thing, but I'm like, okay, well, you have to do it to grow and be courageous and get to the next level. And even like you mentioned, with like asking people questions, that's part of the reason why I started my first interview series is because I was curious about the entertainment industry, but I didn't know anybody in the entertainment industry. So I just was like, hey, well, if I ask them to interview, perhaps they'll talk to me for an hour. And then it shifted to this podcast where I get to just ask people questions and you can answer. So I definitely agree that you have to be willing to put yourself out there, get a little uncomfortable and in order to grow. So do you consciously, purposely put yourself, and I can tell you do, but just curious, like, what is the importance of purposely growing, and how can you tell the difference between purposeful and like growth courage and uncomfort and a situation that might not be beneficial, and like maybe it's like, okay, maybe I need to redirect, because sometimes people, especially those who are have a fear of growth, will be like, oh well, it's not working, so I'm gonna stop, or it's not, it must not be the way I'm supposed to move, and so they won't do it. So do you have any tips for determining, okay, is this something you really shouldn't be doing, or is this something that you might be trying to self-sabotage because you should be doing it and it's just a little bit scary?
Yeah, those are very good questions, Yana. And so for me, going to Toastmasters when I was 50 already, I was successful, but I did not have self-confidence in who I was. And so then going to Toastmasters helped me in that process. And then Toastmasters, for those people that are not familiar with it, that is probably has been around the world for about 30, 35 years, I would say, mainly in North America. There's probably in every city, there is probably half a dozen Toastmaster clubs or two or three. They're usually small, 20 to 30 people, and they focus on a number of things dealing to with communications.
Mm.
The most important part of that is to become a good listener.
Mm.
It's critical to communications, become a good listener. Secondly, to digest interaction mentally and dialogue. And so, especially for somebody with ADHD, is that it feels like I got squirrels running around in my head and I have to line them up, but I'm used to that. And for those that have ADHD and they go around in circles, look at me. I'm probably a good example of ADHD and dyslexia. And so I'm a very good writer. My last book that I did, you may find this interesting. This just came out. It is a
Oh,
bestseller on Amazon, billion-dollar
congratulations.
communication skills. But it is about the billionaires, not about how to make $1 billion, but what made them successful. And
Mm.
what one will see is that communication skills was the foundation of all of them. And to
Oh yeah.
me, it's been very important to me as an individual, where I was the absolute worst case. I've seen hundreds and thousands of people that came into Toastmasters. I have never seen anybody as much of a basket case than me. I
Mm.
could have crawled out of there the first meeting, but I didn't. And
Mm.
so, and then subsequently, from there on in, the next step is that in 1997, so I was in Toastmasters from 1990 to 2000. 1997, another event happened that changed my life is that I picked up the book from Dr. Halliwell and I found that I have dyslexia and ADHD. And so the more I read about it, the more I started to realize it's a superpower. It can
Mm.
be. So it's not a liability. And so then I felt I had to communicate about that. And then I wrote a book about that. And so that's very much part of my life. But initially, when I was already building companies and go to the banks and lend millions of dollars to build companies, if I go there, I give them a good presentation and I say, oh, by the way, just in terms of health and fitness, is that I have a mental disorder called ADHD. They would say, have a nice day. Not now, but then.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
talking probably, I've had my companies for 50 years now.
Mm.
So 20, 30 years ago, nobody had heard of it. And neither did I, obviously, but when I did, even in 1997, it still was not commonly spoken
Mhm.
about. And still, even now, it's still in the early stages of neurodiversity issues and gradually is moving forward, and I believe because the frequency of recurrence is so large. So for me, then, coming back to your question, I believe the question was, when did you realize it and what did you do about it? Is that I've been aware. I initially, at one point, I went to my dog, and I was already 62 then. And, and he said, "Hey, John, why are you here?" Well, I think I got ADHD. Then about 10 years later, after I did that, and I went to him and I said, interesting. I read about they have all these medical things that they use. And so what do you think I should try something? And he said, I don't know, maybe you should try Adderall. So he gave me a container with 100 Adderall pills in it. I tried three of them. They didn't do nothing for me. So I don't like toxic things. And so they're still sitting in my drawer, actually in my office. The date on it is July 2003, I think. So, and so I don't want any of that.
Yeah, right.
So, so those kind of things. But for me now, it's a question of sharing with others that, again, coming back to, if I go to presentations, too often I find, not only in regards to the comments that I made earlier, if I say, "What do you want to do from here?" and saying, "I don't know," and then suggesting they go through the process that I'm suggesting. But the other one is that I always say this, is that I find that so many people are preoccupied as to who they are, what they are. This is not quite right. That's not quite right. And the
Mm,
clothes that I'm wearing, and that applies to males and females.
yeah,
I wish that this was different, that was different. I said there is only one of you on this whole earth, and
yeah,
you are special. And
Hmm.
get to the peace of mind, focus on other things,
Yeah.
and in particular about creating confidence and believe you're not better than, but that you're special. There's only one
yeah,
of you. And then say, what else can I do to be part of the community? That belief, I believe, is very important. I've always done that. And then the other one is that if you are so fortunate to become successful, is how can you share that with others that may give them confidence as to that everything is possible. And
yeah.
coming back to what I said earlier on my book, that on my plate that my employees gave to me, is attitude, passion,
Mm,
ethic, that follows this success. And
Yes.
I believe that part is important.
absolutely. And I definitely agree. And I'm a children's confidence coach as well. And I'm always trying to establish, like you mentioned, confidence and just accepting who you are as an individual because kids can be cruel, and and with like social media and things, everybody wants to be just like the other person or just like who they see on screens. And the people that they see on screens don't even look like themselves because of filters and surgery and all of these different things. So I do think it's important that we learn to love who we are and then also teach the ones that come after us to value themselves. I also have another question because you talked about how you work hard and there's a something that I've been like battling with, and I know a lot of people do, like when you're listening to different people, and I guess it really depends on who they are, but like there are some entrepreneurs and successful people that will say you need to rest, you need to take a break, and then there's others that say, oh, go hard. And personally, when I take a break for too long, then I start to feel like, well, I haven't done anything, and I start to get antsy, and so my break becomes, well, I got to do this, and then I'm like, oh no, don't do it. So how do you function, especially as someone who also has dyslexia and ADHD? Do you believe like breaks are absolutely necessary, or do you believe that you just just keep going and just keep pushing yourself? What are your thoughts on that?
I believe I didn't always do that, but in the last 20 years or so, what we have done, my wife, myself, we've been together for the last 42 years. So
Oh,
So we live in central British Columbia, 500 miles north, 800 kilometers from Vancouver. But there is also a place called Vancouver Island in a city called Victoria, which is the
Mhm.
capital of British Columbia. And so we have a place on the island. And so
Mm.
every Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock, I fly there and I stay there for the weekend, come back here on Monday morning, and then saying, okay, so what do you do, John, when you're there? Well, first enjoy my wife, our doggies, all the
Mhm.
kids are gone, and and then we have both my wife and myself. We ride English dressage. We have 7 horses, and then
Mm.
we do things totally different. I can float around there. I'm just one of the other old guys there that are retired, and so and then. But what else do I do? I work on projects that I'm working on right now. I'm working on my 6th book,
Mhm.
and I like that. And then work on some other projects that I like to do, but are not my daily stuff that I do when I'm here. And
Mhm.
I feel I need that, but I couldn't just lay on the couch, so I'm not
Right.
that kind of a guy. And then we go for our long walks and ride horses and do that kind of stuff.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we are coming up a bit on the tail end. I do have a few more my cliche questions. However, is there anything that you wanted to highlight that I did not already ask about, and we can focus this part on anything that you wanted to discuss or share?
For anybody that, because of circumstances, whatever they may be, feels that they cannot be or will not be successful, then I say no.
Mm.
Always think I can, not I can't. Everything is possible. And
Mm,
then the other one that I said I believe is important, there's only one of you, and you are special. Not better
Mm.
than, but you are special. Accept that. Doesn't mean that you should not wear nice clothes or do other things, but do not try to make you somebody that by their appearance will become successful. No, but will make you successful is being you
Mm.
and have confidence in you. And then the other part, give back to your community wherever you can. Doesn't mean money or anything. Be involved.
Mhm.
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you. So these last three questions are my three cliche questions that I ask everybody that comes through. The first one is, if you can think of a time when you were younger and in a darker space, what is one piece of advice that you know now that you wish you would have known back then?
I I would believe that I never questioned myself, but it would have been helpful, other than my family, that somebody believed in me at that
Mm,
point. And probably some people did, but they didn't express it, you know.
absolutely. All right. The second one is the internet works in mysterious ways, so we never know who is going to listen to this or watch it. Is there any person or organization that you would really like to work with?
I like to work with people that in particular are active, with and ADHD, dyslexia, obviously, and other ones that have neurodiversity issues and need confidence. I say, watch podcasts like this. They are Podcasting is the new media of the future, and
Mm,
and so that is one area. And they'd be selective in terms of the books that you read, but encouraged me is especially people that I could admire, not for
mm,
what they have, but more or less from who they are. And at the end of the day, that's the part that is important. Who are you? And what did you do giving back?
absolutely, absolutely. And then the last question, and of course, I'll put your link in the description. But if someone wants to work with you, what's the best way to do so? If someone wants to contact you, get your books, and find anything out about you, what's the best way to learn more and make contact with you?
So, John A. as in Aaron or Adam, Brink, BRINK.com. And that shows all the things that we are doing and where I'm at. And if you contact me, then I will try to get back to you, but do my best to do that. And then the other part is I'm very active as a podcaster and already, and podcasting is the media of the future. And I believe that's important. And even for younger people, social media is not really social media anymore. It is
Yeah.
not interactive. I believe podcasting is. And you and me never met each other. We covered a lot of ground together. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that is what I like about podcasting, and obviously you do as well.
Yeah.
And we got to know each other very well, and I believe that is part of the future as well.
Absolutely. All right. And before we go, I know because sometimes at the end it's like, oh, I wish I would have said this. And I know I already asked, but is there anything that you're like, oh, I wish I would have said this, or I wish I would have brought this up before we close out?
We said it all, Yana, other than to say I appreciate your podcast. You're doing a very, very good job. You're a very good
Oh,
communicator.
thank
And
you.
so I keep watching you and stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll give you, like I give my students and my other guests, a signature round of applause for a wonderful conversation. I appreciate your honesty, your vulnerability, your willing to share and express, and we'll definitely be in contact. And I hope and I know that all the listeners and whoever watches this got a lot out of it, because I certainly did, as someone who is dyslexic and is ADHD as well, always trying to fit into a mold. You, from this conversation, you've given me more freedom to just accept who I am, accept it as a superpower. So I just wanted to thank you for that as well.
Thanks, Yana. I
All right.
appreciate it. And you take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.